Hey Vista, and welcome back to your City Council Tea. Did you miss it? I kind of did. All right, so this is the recap for the August 11th, 2026 Vista City Council meeting. And after 7 weeks off, Council came back and gave us 4 minutes shy of 5 freaking hours, and boy, did it deliver some drama. But I guess that's what happens when you try to cram a whole bunch of important stuff into one meeting, because everybody had a whole lot to say. And somewhere in the middle of those 5 hours, this happened.
You can't be polite enough. Somebody who was elected by all the people of the city, you can't have the respect to listen because you disagree. Okay, and you had your opportunity to speak. I get to speak longer because I got elected by everybody in Vista. Okay. I cannot say my piece that I was elected by the entire city because of your continued and persistent interruptions.
And for the record, not me, I voted for Cipriano. Promise we'll get back to that in a bit. And despite whatever that was, Council actually did get a squanch load done. Buckle in because we've got the old Burlington building, plastic bottles, rental assistance for some of Vista's most vulnerable seniors, solar at the wave, styrofoam, traffic calming, golf carts, and a surprisingly philosophical question about whether public participation is fanfare. If you're new here, hi, I'm Chris Rainwaters, Vista California's self-proclaimed village witch. And twice a month, I sit through our Vista City Council meeting, so you don't have to. I pull out what actually matters, distill it down, and serve it back to you in a much more digestible little cup of tea. And this week, we have a whole freaking pot. Well, iced tea pot anyway. It's hot, so let's spill it. We actually started out really sweet. There were 2 proclamations. So the first was Gilberto Gilly Gonzalez, who was recognized for his service and community involvement. And August 12th, 2026 was proclaimed Gilly Gonzalez Day. And then Vista recognized its own baby prizefighter moment. So Frankie Garcia is a 21-year-old Vista boxer who won his professional debut by a 2nd round knockout, then came back for his 2nd fight at Front Wave Arena and won that one 1st round TKO. So still undefeated, and August 13th, 2026 was dubbed Frankie Garcia Day. So congratulations to both of you. Very wholesome. If you're watching, I hope you had the best day. Also, on a side note, while Council was away, I did not play. Nope, I did not take those 7 weeks off. No vacations for me. I have been over on Instagram building out a whole lot more Vista stuff, especially the real estate side of what I do. So if you want to keep up with the Vista housing market without having to sit through some realtor pointing out a graph and a blazer, come find me over there. I'm touring houses, showing you what your money actually buys you in Vista, talking about what's happening with the market, and then inevitably, getting distracted by whatever else is happening around town. Local events, activism, city stuff, weird Vista-only things, chickens, punk rock, probably a protest or 2, aerial silks, the usual. Basically, if you like the tea, Instagram is where you get the rest of the Vista cinematic universe. And you and I both know nobody else is gonna do it quite like this. All right, let's get into public comment. So it was eclectic. One resident came back with concerns about a dog boarding business operating on Crestview Road. So this is staycation for dogs in a residential neighborhood. And I want to be careful here because these are her alleged allegations, not findings that I independently verified. However, I do fly by there often on the broom, and more often than not, I do hear lots of dog barking. So I can only imagine how disruptive that must be in the neighborhood. Just saying. Her basic argument is that the city appears to be treating the kennel as a legal, non-conforming or grandfathered use, but she wants the city to actually establish what the historic use was and whether the business has expanded or intensified beyond that. She raised concerns about barking, traffic, employee vehicles, and neighborhood impacts, and said several nearby residents have joined her in asking for answers. And honestly, regardless of how that particular case shakes out, this is why land use enforcement matters. Grandfathered cannot just mean, it existed at some point, therefore it goes on forever. There has to be an actual legal scope to the use. We also heard from another community member, Joe Hood. I'm saying his name because he spoke a few times about ecological overshoot and environmental sustainability, which turned out to be very on theme for where this meeting eventually went. And he also spoke on quite a few of those other topics as well. But first, the giant dead Burlington coat factory building. So if you drive the 78 past Sycamore, have you wondered why that enormous former Burlington coat factory on the south side of the freeway has been sitting there looking like the literal opening scene of a zombie movie? Yeah, so the council has also had enough of it too, because it is such an eyesore. The building is about 85,000 square feet and has been vacant since 2020. City staff documented an unsecured structure, unsafe conditions, and a partial roof collapse. Between July 30th, 2025 and July 29th of this year, the Sheriff's Department recorded 85 events associated with that property, including 25 arrests. Code enforcement has opened 29 cases since it became vacant. 5 administrative citations have been issued since May, totaling 10,500, and 7,250 are still outstanding at the time of the meeting. The property owner's representative pushed back on the idea that they've simply done nothing. So he used a lot of excuses like COVID, financing, economic conditions, security costs, redevelopment efforts, and said that they had already started working toward a demolition permit. I mean, fair enough, but the building is still there and it is still a problem. And at some point, we're working on it stops meaning anything. Council unanimously declared the property a public nuisance and ultimately landed on 45 days with the ability to bring it back to council if necessary. And this matters beyond, ugly building bad. Every sheriff call, every code enforcement visit, every time Public Works has to go deal with trash or encampment related problems is public time and public money being spent babysitting a privately owned property. So yes, develop it, demolish it, secure it, do something, please. But the era of just letting that giant shell sit there indefinitely finally appears to be ending. So yippee skippy. And before I move on, I do want to give Deputy Mayor O'Donnell his flowers on this one, because this property has been a pain in the patoot for a long time. And Dan has just kept at it. And this is the kind of work that I think is really easy for people to miss. It's not sexy. It doesn't make a great campaign mailer. It's phone calls and follow-ups and Zoom meetings, asking the same questions over and over again and figuring out who needs to talk to who and what the city can actually do, and then continuing to push when the answer is basically, we're working on it. I know how seriously Dan takes this city, and I know how much time and energy he has put into it. And I've watched him build relationships throughout this community and watched him work on things that don't necessarily fall neatly inside District 4, because at the end of the day, he really does give a shit about Vista. All of Vista. And since we are officially in election season, I also want to be totally transparent about where I stand on everything. So Dan O'Donnell has my full support for re-election in District 4. And no, unfortunately, I don't live in District 4, so I don't get a vote in that race, but I do support him everywhere I can. And I do know what he puts into this job. I see the homework. I see the follow through. I see the questions. I see the relationships that he's built. And I see him pushing on the frustrating, boring, complicated shit that can take months or years before anybody else even notices something finally happened. And I don't need to agree with somebody on every single issue to know whether I trust them to do the job. I trust Dan to do the job. So Dan, I see you, I appreciate you, and thank you for sticking with us on this one. All right, before we move on, I'm just going to mention that this episode is sponsored by Coven Real Estate, because this is exactly why we make these videos. Look, buying a home isn't about 4 walls and a sunny backyard photograph that you saw on Zillow. You are buying into a neighborhood, and that means the commercial property down the road, what's being developed around you, the streets you drive every day, the code enforcement, traffic, parks, city council decisions, all of it. Zillow is not going to tell you any of this, but we will. So if you're thinking about buying or selling a home here in North County, San Diego, and you want a real estate team that actually pays attention to what is happening in the communities we sell in, that's Coven Real Estate. There's a bunch of free stuff for you in the description too, including my buyer and seller guide, so you don't have to be ready to hire me to get something useful down there, Oh, and the Instagram link is down there too. Okay, sponsor moment over, back to the tea. So before we get to the main event, AKA the plastic water bottle saga, we have one extremely important piece of Vista business to address, and that is Frog Rock. Because apparently there was some concern about what happens to our beloved amphibious boulder with the new housing project going in around it. So the project itself is 15 attached homes on about 1.67 acres, and the Planning Commission has already approved it unanimously. But an appeal was filed largely to make sure that the rock outcroppings and other sensitive cultural resources on the property were actually protected as this thing, gets built. So the project already includes archaeological and Native American monitoring during grading, plus protecting open space around the rock area. But here's what everybody really wants to know. Yes, Frog Rock stays. It is being incorporated into the project. It has to remain visible to the public, even with the fencing, and the conditions now make sure that the rock is maintained in perpetuity. In perpetuity. I think I said it right the first time. Oh my God, brain. In perpetuity. I don't know. I'm having problems, guys. 7 weeks. Give me some slack. All right. And yes, it will be maintained forever as a frog. You guessed it. You are correct. All right. Now we're going to get at the part that I teased you with at the beginning. So get comfortable, refill your tea or your iced tea. The actual ordinance here is much less dramatic than the debate would have you believe. So as presented, Vista's ordinance prohibits the sale or distribution of plastic beverage bottles 1 liter or smaller at city facilities and city affiliated events, and prevents city money from being used to buy them. And since you were so confused, Mayor Franklin, oh my gosh, this is what we're talking about, okay? And no, it's not mine. We cart around a Pathfinder full of 11-year-olds all the time because of football. And so my car never not has a plethora of trash to choose from in the back seat. I will add here that we rainwaters have large reusable water jugs that we use because these dinky little things, these are not enough, but I digress. It does not prohibit you from bringing your own plastic bottle, just FYI, and it does not cover bottles larger than 1 liter. And there are exemptions and waivers, including outdoor worker hydration when there isn't reasonable alternative, and youth sporting events. And fortunately, speaking of football, I would like to add here that my car would be a lot cleaner if the city banned it here too. Just saying. And there was a legitimate issue brought up by the chamber about huge events like the Strawberry Festival because it draws around 80,000 people. It can be super hot at the end of May. I mean, I'm usually sweating my patoot off in the Pop Warner Strawberry Shortcake booth. And the chamber basically said, can we please not accidentally create a situation where nobody can hand somebody an emergency bottle of water, which is totally reasonable. I mean, duh. So council worked toward a 3-year phase-in or sunset for the large event exemption, issuing 30,000 attendees as the threshold and the same 3-year window for youth sports. So yay, but my car wishes it was faster. But this is what policymaking is supposed to look like. You have a goal, somebody points out an unintended consequence, you fix the unintended consequence without throwing the entire thing in the trash, except then Mayor Franklin went on a tangent about littering. And I actually agree with part of what he was saying. He was furious about people throwing trash on the ground. He called littering barbaric and said that he wants actual litter enforcement, even suggesting the sheriff's department to do a littering sting operation.
Councilmember Contreras asked me if a cleaner, more beautiful Vista was just empty words. I've asked this council, I want the sheriff's department to conduct a sting operation for litter. I strongly dislike, I'm not going to say hate, because I don't hate anybody, but I strongly dislike people who throw their trash on the ground. I do not do this. I think it's a barbaric thing to do.
And yes, please find people who litter. It makes me angry too. Educate people. I was waiting for a client at a showing once at a condo complex, and I watched him get out of his car. Not my client. I would not have worked with him. Get out of his car and then throw his trash onto the street, like with purpose, And I was like, excuse me, you dropped something. And he just shrugged and was like, whatever, and walked off. And if it was in Vista, I probably would have said more, but lucky for him, it was in Oceanside. And I didn't need my client seeing me, make a huge scene and forcing this young gentleman to pick up his freaking trash and throw it away. So he dodged a bullet that day. He really did. So put enough trash and recycling receptacles around, right? Make manufacturers responsible for some of the mess that they create. Improve waste collection, clean the creeks, and reduce the amount of disposable Nikes that we produce in the first place. Why are we acting like we have to pick one thing? That's where I totally lost the plot of this argument, okay? Because the mayor started asking how plastic could possibly get from Vista into the ocean. I know he was being stupid, but at one point he was asking whether EDCO was literally driving trucks to the coast and then dumping the plastic into the Pacific, and said that he's been everywhere from LA to TJ and he's never seen trucks, dumping plastic in there, which, duh, that's not how freaking runoff works.
So I'm very deeply concerned about the plastic in the ocean. Maybe you will know that. Does EDCO dump the plastic bottles directly into the ocean, or do they give them to another organization who then puts them into the ocean? And where? Because I've been on the coastline from Tijuana all the way to and I don't see where the trucks are dumping the plastic from the American people into the ocean. So could you help me to better understand how the plastic from our events is being dumped into the ocean? Because I am unaware.
In fact, the city of Vista's own website says that our storm drain system carries runoff to local creeks, not a treatment plant, and that runoff can carry trash and other pollutants with it. Another city page says that pollutants on our streets, sidewalks, parking lots, and gutters can wash down storm drains into our watersheds and ultimately the ocean. That is literally our own city telling us how a bottle on the ground can become a bottle in a waterway. And then we got here.
So again, does EDCO dump the plastic directly into the... Okay, it's a trick question. EDCO does not put plastic in the ocean. The American people, let me be very clear about this, the American people are not putting plastic in the ocean. That is not happening. Developing nations are putting their plastic in the ocean.
Okay, so I went and looked that up because that is a very big, very confident statement. And no, that's not what the evidence says. So the OECD's review of the U.S. plastic pollution estimates that in 2019, about 950 metric tons of plastic leaked into the environment within the United States, including litter and other mismanaged waste. Their model estimated about 240,000 metric tons reached U.S. rivers, with about 110,000 metric tons transported from those rivers and into the ocean. So American people are not putting plastic in the ocean is simply not supportable. Now, there was a kernel of truth buried inside the mayor's tangent. I know, good for him. So wealthier countries, including, oh, you guessed it, the United States, have historically exported enormous amounts of plastic waste overseas, including 2 countries that had inadequate waste management systems. And some of that American waste did leak into the environment after export. But that does not make it their plastic. It makes it our waste that we shipped somewhere else. In fact, the mayor basically contradicted himself about 10 seconds later.
Much of our recycled plastic is being sent to China and Southeast Asia, where it is in fact being illegally dumped into rivers and waterways, making its way into the ocean. Yeah, it is our plastic.
Exactly. Also, the China piece is dated. China banned most plastic waste imports in 2018. U.S. exports then dropped significantly and shifted toward other countries, including Southeast Asia. So there were fragments of real information in there, but they got assembled into a conclusion that the evidence clearly doesn't support. And I want to say something about the developing nations framing too, because I cannot tell you what was in Mayor Franklin's head. I'm not going to pretend that I can. But when the argument becomes not Americans, developing nations are doing this, while leaving out our mass consumption, our production, our exports, and our own domestic pollution, I think that deserves some serious side eyes. So to me, that framing is scapegoating. And yes, when you broadly point the finger at developing nations to absolve Americans of responsibility for a global waste stream that we are demonstrably part of, I think there is a radicalized and xenophobic undertone to that argument. You can decide what word you want to use for it, but what I am not going to do is let these people somewhere else are the problem become a substitute for looking at what we can actually control here, because we can control something. So here's a stupidly mundane example from my own house. My son and I buy sparkling water at Costco. There is one brand that we will not buy because the case is already cardboard and then they wrap the case in plastic. But then every 6-pack inside of it has those rings around it. Why? You already put the cans in a box, so we buy a different brand. Now, does Costco feel the loss of one of my cases of sparkling water? Probably not, because I buy a different brand. But if 10,000 families make that decision, if Costco starts saying, hey, our customers don't want this packaging, if Vista and Oceanside and Carlsbad and San Marcos stop purchasing certain disposable plastics, if venues and schools and cities and retailers start requiring alternatives, now the manufacturer has a reason to change the package. And hilariously, someone at this very meeting basically made this point for me. So the representative from Dr. Bronner said that customers kept telling them that they loved the product, but they didn't want all the plastic. And that pressure pushed refill and reuse packaging from a side issue into something the business seriously had to solve. So that's how free markets work. Demand doesn't only mean what product do I buy, demand can also mean what product will my city purchase? What packaging will my retailer stock? What will an event organizer allow? What will a manufacturer be responsible for after the product is used? And for what it's worth, EPA's own national plastic strategy does not say choose one strategy anyway. It says reduce production and consumption of single-use plastics, expand reuse, improve waste management, improve product design, and prevent escaped plastic from reaching waterways. So yes, Mayor Franklin, let's crack down on litter. Absolutely. And let's reduce unnecessary plastic. And let's make manufacturers rethink stupid packaging. And let's improve recycling. And let's keep trash out of storm drains. And let's clean up what has already escaped. Vista can walk and chew gum at the same time. We promise. And this is where the policy argument turned into something else. So Mayor Franklin challenged Councilmember Contreras to make an argument and have an intelligent thing to say, and told her to counteract my argument with your superior intellect, with your better ideas, and then almost immediately told her that he was not inviting her to speak. Then he asked, how is it getting to the ocean? And she's responded, and he told her, I wasn't inviting you to give a response.
Make an argument. Have an intelligent thing to say. No, I'm not inviting you to speak right now. I am saying, rather than interrupt people, have an intelligent thing to say. Counteract my argument with your superior intellect, with your better ideas. Because that's what I'm doing right now, is demonstrating the lunacy of your arguments. It is lunacy. Saying that if we put something in a landfill, it leaches into our water supply is not true. So the idea that a bottle thrown on the ground is going into the ocean, this is not true. No, it's not. It is not. How is it getting to the ocean? There absolutely is. I was rhetorical. I wasn't inviting you to give a response.
And this is the part that bothered me more than just two elected officials getting irritated with each other. Because yes, the mayor controls recognition. Yes, council has rules of decorum. And no, a rhetorical question is not automatically parliamentary recognition to speak. But you cannot repeatedly engage somebody, challenge their intelligence, tell them to counter your argument, ask questions in their direction, and then act shocked and offended when they engage back. And then it escalated.
Remember, he's giving a very intelligent response. You might want to listen.
If you're going to interrupt me, then should I bring lasagna?
Sorry, that was a point of information.
No. Should I just bring lasagna? Should we have a food fight, or should we have some decorum and rules?
I don't want any
Why
lasagna
can you not conduct yourself as an adult?
Why
can you not give the respect to your fellow electeds to say their piece?
Why do you have to yell in general?
I am speaking my piece. I was elected to do so. You disagree with the substance of my thoughts, and therefore you want to interrupt me. You're just provoking me. Am I to interrupt you ad nauseum and ad infinitum when you speak?
You do all the time, yes.
That is not true.
We can roll back the tapes.
Perhaps going forward, I should just interrupt you whenever I feel the pleasure.
Go ahead.
Because you do it to me. Why are you incapable of behaving as an adult? A child cannot follow basic decorum rules. You're behaving as a child. A child can't follow basic rules of decorum.
Unregulated.
Why do you not conduct yourself as a professional?
I think what you're doing is called projection.
Stop interrupting. You are not recognized to speak. Stop it.
Yeah, how embarrassing to be the mayor, because wow, that is not a good look for anyone. And okay, I would not like it if the political positions were reversed either. I mean, there's a difference between enforcing meeting procedure and belittling a colleague, though. He later blamed her interruptions for making the meeting longer, and even floated asking the body to expel her from the room.
Yeah, I mean, we could be done with this sooner if you would stop interrupting. No, you know what? If you don't stop interrupting, then you're forcing my hand here. what would we do with a council member who continues to delay and disrupt the proceedings? Frankly, I should ask the body to expel you from the room for your interruption of the meeting.
You should vote. You should take that. You should make that a motion and try to get a second.
If you're going to force my hand, no, you're behaving as a child. And we are here 15 minutes longer with this nonsense because of your repeated interruptions. Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, Deputy Mayor O'Donnell finally gets the floor with all of this and opens with,
It's really good to be back, everyone. 7 weeks off was not, it was too long. Okay. I can't even talk right now.
10 out of 10, no notes. So ultimately, the plastic bottle ordinance passed 4-1 with Mayor Franklin opposed, of course. And the large event and youth sports changes will come back for further work, which brings us to a word that we are going to revisit before the end of this episode, fanfare, which I've decided is the word of the day.
Today's secret word is now. You all remember what to do whenever anyone says a secret word, right? Scream! Right!
Okay, put a pin in that. Next up was the Vista Stable program. And if you've been watching the tea for a while, you already know that this has been working its way through council for months. So Vista set aside $500,000 for a targeted rental assistance program for very low income, severely rent burdened seniors at risk of losing their housing. So the subsidy can be $250, $500, $750, or up to $1,000 a month, depending on need, with assistance available for up to 24 months. So the payments go directly to landlords or service providers, and the goal here is to bring the household's housing burden below 60% of gross income. This is not just a, here's a check, good luck kind of thing. So Interfaith Community Services will administer it with, the case management, budgeting help, benefit enrollment, utility discounts, landlord advocacy, and a custom housing stabilization plan. The program is being released in tranches so that the city can actually look at outcomes and make adjustments as they go. So of the $500K, about $360 of that goes directly toward client assistance, $100K to staffing and case management, and roughly $39K to other program costs like cell phones and stuff. Staff estimated roughly 4 cohorts of 10 households, although an actual participation amount will depend on need and the subsidy amount. And this is where there was a reasonable fiscal policy disagreement to have. So Mayor Franklin questioned how you fairly choose among more eligible people than the program can possibly serve. He questioned what happens if someone comes to rely on the subsidy and city funding goes away. And Deputy Mayor O'Donnell also raised concerns about administration costs and Vista's longer-term budget outlook, but supported treating this as a pilot and measuring whether it actually stabilizes people. And those are legitimate questions. And then Mayor Franklin called the program.
Furthermore, this is a plan of absolute socialism. The idea that we're going to provide direct payments for people's housing, I can't support it on those grounds.
A plan of absolute socialism. And later,
it's a massive expansion of socialism in the city of Vista. I cannot support it.
A massive expansion of socialism in the city of Vista. Okay, so personally, I think we can discuss whether a $500K pilot is effective without summoning Karl Marx into the council chamber, especially because Vista staff said its 4 rental assistance programs since 2020 have distributed about $1.4 million and helped prevent 820 Vista residents from losing their housing. So does that prove this particular program will work? No, but that's why you pilot it and track it. And I really appreciate Deputy Mayor O'Donnell's position here because I support helping seniors and I want to know if the program works and whether or not we can afford it is completely reasonable place to land. Council approved the interfaith agreement 4-1. Franklin opposed, of course. So why this matters is because once a vulnerable senior loses their housing, we have not magically eliminated the problem or the cost. We have moved the problem somewhere else, usually to systems that are much more expensive and a whole lot more traumatic. So we're going to find out whether prevention works better. And, that's what a pilot is for. All right, so the next is Solar Plus, and praise be, this one did not result in anyone threatening to remove anyone else from the chamber. So clean Clean Energy Alliance and Luminia presented a solar plus concept for several city facilities. The Wave Water Park was the clear frontrunner, and the preliminary proposal is roughly 200 kilowatt solar system plus battery storage. And the presenter estimated about $118,000 in first year benefit and nearly $6 million over 25 years. So the very important words there are preliminary estimate. So we've not magically, manifested $6 million into the city treasury yet or anything like that. Council gave direction to move forward with an independent financial review of the WAVE proposal while sending the other sites back to the Environmental Commission for more work. So there's no final project approval last night, and I like it. If the economics hold up independently, you potentially get shade structures, renewable energy, battery storage, lower term energy costs, and some extra resilience during outages. But if the math doesn't hold up, don't do it. Easy. And personally, I was always under the impression that purchasing is better than leasing, but I, just do residential real estate and only know what I've seen. And I doubt that the city's gonna, sell the Wave or the Moonlight anytime soon. All right, and then we came back to more plastic because apparently August 11th was Environmental Super Bowl night. So Vista already prohibits food service businesses from handing out certain polystyrene foam foodware. And here's the encouraging part, because the enforcement model has actually been pretty gentle. Since that rule became enforceable, 29 businesses were reported as out of compliance, but the city staff worked with them through education and outreach. None received a citation or a fee, and 11 used the waiver process while transitioning into compliance. So when we hear people, ban, and we picture code enforcement like kicking in the door of a local taco shop and like fining them for thousands of dollars that they can't afford to pay because somebody found a stone clamshell thing, right? Like, that's not what this looks like at all. So the Environmental Commission now wants Vista to expand the rule to retail sale of certain foam products. Staff estimated roughly 100 retail businesses could potentially be affected. The chamber did a very small 5-day poll with 20 respondents, and 7 said that they use polystyrene and had difficulty finding substitutes. That came up more often than the actual cost of those substitutes. But California already restricts producers from selling or distributing expanded polystyrene food serviceware already because the required 25% recycling rate hasn't been met. But the state rule doesn't cover every foam product, and there are still retailer and out-of-state gaps, which is part of what Vista is looking at locally. Council gave staff direction to draft an expanded ordinance modeled in part on Oceanside while doing more homework on manufacturers and businesses in Vista's business park. Pool and beach toys were removed, your noodles are safe, because there was concern about sweeping long-lasting products like noodles, and the same, not my dog, he is a long-lasting product. I think he's under the bed. Hi, buddy. Anyway, there was concern about sweeping long-lasting products like pool noodles into the same category as throwaway foam packaging. And Mayor Franklin said that he would oppose the expansion because, in his words, it was overreach and we're regulating literally everything. This is not a final ordinance yet. Staff is going to work through exemptions, manufacturing impacts, and the actual language, and it'll come back. And again, this is where I come back to, why can't we just do all of it? Make the ordinance smart. Don't actually screw over a local manufacturer using foam inside a permanent medical device or some specialized product where there isn't an alternative. Give businesses time to adapt, educate before you punish, enforce littering laws, improve stormwater systems, and stop selling unnecessary disposable garbage when perfectly functional, eco-friendly alternatives already exist. These ideas are not enemies. Okay, 2 last quick ones. I promise, let me get through. First one's Foothill traffic. So no, there will not be a new all-way stop at Foothill Drive and Calle Sinaloa. The traffic analysis did not meet the warrant criteria, and the Traffic Commission had opposed the all-way stop anyway. So residents themselves were also divided on whether or not their stop sign would actually fix the problem because they see people running them all the time. But council absolutely heard the bigger issue. People are hauling butt down Foothill. So slow down, people. Although I'm sure anyone that watches the Tea doesn't speed around town because we're all amazing, but I digress. Council member Contreras, who grew up in that area, called the speeds extreme and excessive and pushed for the city to work with residents on actual traffic calming instead. So no stop sign, but staff is going back to work with the neighborhood, traffic commission, and fire emergency concerns on other options. solutions. And I like that, don't just install infrastructure just so that you can say you did something, like figure out what will actually slow people down, am I right? And while we are talking about Councilmember Contreras, I want to say something about her too, because if you only ever see the clips where the council gets spicy, you're missing a huge part of Karina is and how much work she actually puts into the city. She is effing relentless, and I mean that as a compliment. There are things that she has been pushing for years. The Inland Rail Trail is probably my favorite example because I swear to God, if Sandag thought that she was eventually just gonna forget about that thing, they picked the wrong woman. She keeps bringing it up. She keeps asking where the money is. She keeps asking what the next step is. She keeps pushing because she wants people to actually be able to walk and bike safely through this city. And that's just one example. I have watched her bring that same energy to environmental issues, housing, safer streets, equity, neighborhoods that haven't always gotten the same attention, and making sure that people who live here actually get heard. And I know Karina personally, so I want to be transparent about that too, but I also watch her do this job. Every meeting, every debate, and time again, what I see is somebody who genuinely has Vista's best interests at heart and is willing to put in the work for it. So since we're in election season, I want to be clear about where I personally stand. Karina Contreras has my full support for re-election in District 1. I don't agree with every decision she has ever made, of course not, but I don't need to. What matters to me is whether I trust somebody to show up, know her shit, listen to people, fight for the things that they believe will make this city better, and keep working when the work gets painfully frustrating and slow. And I trust Karina to do that. And actually, that's what Dan and Karina have in common for me. They're very different people and they don't agree on everything. And I don't agree with either of them on everything, but good. I don't want 5 copies of the same person sitting on city council. I want people who care deeply about this place and have demonstrated time and time again that they are willing to do the work to make Vista safer, kinder, more equitable, more beautiful, and yes, more freaking fun. That is what I want from the people representing this city. Okay, one last item. The Shadow Ridge golf cart wars continue. So council finally cleaned up an old 1994 resolution that included golf carts on both public and private streets. So it turns out the city doesn't actually have a state law authority to authorize golf cart use on private streets. So the private streets are being removed from the city resolution. So existing HOA or golf course agreements on private roads are not wiped out by this. So basically, the city has officially removed itself from a fight that it apparently did not legally belong in anyway. So boundaries, yes, right? Love to see them. And that brings us full circle to the word that I told you to remember, fanfare. During the plastic bottle debate, Mayor Franklin suggested council approve the ordinance as presented, bring the event changes back separately, and said that future discussion would probably draw less fanfare and be more efficient use of people's time.
Even though I won't be voting for it, if you choose to adopt this, adopt it in the form that's been presented this evening. And then if you would like to bring another ordinance which modifies this one for large events, I think that one would draw less fanfare. Could you consider adopting this item as it's been presented? And then when we discuss that subject, it will just be for the large event exception. And I don't think it'll be the big fanfare that we've had tonight, and it'll be a much more efficient use of the people's time.
But later, Councilmember Melendez responded directly to that. She thanked the community members who showed up and told them, I encourage you to continue the fanfare. And then again, just keep doing it.
My only comment that I wanted to share,
she refused to vote, so we had to do it by verbally.
Was in response to the mayor's comment saying that during the next reading of this item that there wouldn't be as much fanfare. And I just want to say thank you to the members of the community that came out tonight. And I encourage you to continue the fanfare because I think it's really important work that you've done. There's been a lot more work that has gone into it than what myself or any of my fellow colleagues might have contributed. Be watchdogs for the environment and continue to participate in these discussions and show up and use your voice in your full 3 minutes while you still can at the public meeting. And yeah, just continue the fanfare. Just appreciate you and would encourage you to continue to participate because we will have further discussions.
And I think that's where I want to leave this one, because the people who came to that meeting were not background noise. They researched, they testified, they pointed out problems, they brought business concerns, they brought environmental concerns, they challenged council. And I believe some of what they said literally changed the direction of policy that night. That is the whole freaking point of local government. You don't have to agree with every speaker. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with Councilmember Contreras. You don't have to agree with Mayor Franklin, but please do not confuse public participation with an inconvenience standing between elected officials and going home. I mean, admittedly, I was fighting consciousness for the last 30 minutes, but fanfare is democracy being annoying enough to require your attention. And I would much rather live in a city with too much of that than not enough. So yeah, continue the fanfare. And while we're at it, tell me down in the comments, do you think Vista should do both? You know, reduce unnecessary single-use plastics and get more aggressive about littering and cleanup? Because apparently we're being asked to choose, and I'm not really sure why. If this helped you make sense of what happened in your own backyard, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and send this to your nosy Vista neighbor. And I will continue voluntarily sacrificing my Tuesday night and my bedtime and my entire next day reflecting, writing, and filming this for you. So thank you for watching and engaging, and thank you to my incredible editor, Robin. I'm Chris Rainwaters with Coven Real Estate and Vista's Village Witch. I'll see you on the next one, but hopefully sooner.